Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Number to call if you want to join the program is 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. I'm glad to make you a part of the conversation. I stand corrected because I didn't read far enough, or I had forgotten this was on the list. It's the last page of the catalog. You can buy rabbits through the Christmas Critter campaign, Gospel for Asia. You can buy rabbits, probably the rabbits that I have chased to India, rounded up, and then sold in order to provide help to the poor. But for $11, you can provide a pair of rabbits. They're furry, they're cute, and they can change someone's life. That's what the catalog says. Pair of rabbits will quickly multiply, providing a steady diet of healthy meat and plenty of bunnies to sell. They're easy to feed. They can be raised in a small space, which is an important consideration when you talk about how crowded Asia is. So for $11, you can make a lasting difference in the life of a needy family in Asia. 877-907-GOAT is the number to call. You can go to afr.net and visit the catalog there, 877-907-GOAT, or just simply go to afr.net. Like to join the conversation, 888-589-8840 is the number to call. Let's start off this segment with a phone call. Let's go right to Luther in Columbus, Ohio. Luther, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to talk about Iceland, how they took their country back in 2008, and I just found this out, and I'm like a news buff, I watch everything.
You talking about kind of the way they've revived their economy there?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, talk to us about that.
I think we should have a pot and pan revolution before it turns to blood, because I believe evil begets evil. And somehow we need to pick a date, and we all need to just go to our governors, for our state, and just start beating pots and pans to take this country back.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, Luther, because I've got a story right here, and what Luther's saying, I believe, is exactly right. And thank you for that call, Luther. I appreciate that. 888-589-8840. Here is one of our winnable war moments of the day. Our first winnable war moment for the day is that the state of Michigan just yesterday passed a law that will require all of the health insurance packages that are sold in Michigan do not provide abortion. It's not included in the standard coverage in their abortion policy. If you want to get an insurance policy that covers abortion in Michigan, they are going to force you to pay a separate fee for a rider to that policy. There aren't going to be any policies sold in Michigan that automatically include abortion as one of the covered services. So that is a winnable war moment. And Michigan is not the only one. There are a total of 9 states now that have the same restriction in their states, and they're allowed to do this. They're allowed to set that parameter themselves. So you can get a insurance policy that covers abortion, but you have to pay for it as an extra thing, a separate deal, separate transaction, or separate decision, and you can purchase this rider for your insurance. And it's interesting, in Michigan, this thing passed overwhelmingly, 62-47 in the House and 27-11 in the Senate. And this was a victory for the people. Right to Life went in there, collected 300,000 signatures, and if you get the signatures passed, it can either go to the legislature or it can go on the ballot. They sent the thing, once they got the signatures verified, they sent it directly to the legislature, and the legislature can either vote on it or they can defer it to the ballot. They decided to go ahead and vote on it, and it automatically becomes law without the signature of the governor. And Governor Rick Snyder, even though he's a Republican, he vetoed this thing last year. So they just found a way right around him, power to the people, power of the people, we the people. So it's going to go into law here over the objections of Democrats. And this is a good deal because abortion, frankly, is not health care. Abortion is not health care, shouldn't even be in the health care package. And here's that winnable war moment that I was talking about, going back to our last caller, about where, I honestly believe, our last caller was talking about banging on the pots and pans, and I believe that our state governments are the key here. I believe our state governments are the key to reining in this out-of-control behemoth that we have of a federal government in Washington, D.C. And let me give you an example. This is kind of interesting. South Carolina. Remember, South Carolina, that's where Fort Sumter was. That's where the Civil War started. They were the first to secede from the Union in 1861. South Carolina is on the verge of nullifying Obamacare in the state of South Carolina. It's already passed the House overwhelmingly. See where the totals were 65 to 34, 2-1 margin. It passed in the House of Representatives. It's on the fast track now to go to the Senate, to go to the South Carolina Senate in January. Nikki Haley, the governor, Tea Party lady, she's already pledged to sign it. And what this bill will do in South Carolina is it will make Obamacare illegal in the state of South Carolina, or it will forbid anybody from implementing Obamacare. And it's set for fast-track passage. So by January, by this time in a month or a little over a month, Obamacare may be eliminated in one of the 50 states in the union. It will be null and void. It will be of no effect in the state of South Carolina. It's House Bill 3101. It sets, let's see if I get to the details of the bill, that could make South Carolina the first state to exempt citizens and businesses from all participation in the Affordable Care Act. I want to repeat that. South Carolina, right on the verge of enacting a bill, passing it into law, signed by the governor, that would exempt all of the citizens and all of the businesses in South Carolina from participation in the Affordable Care Act. Now, the bill's main component, according to Daily Caller, prohibits agencies, officers, and employees of the state of South Carolina from implementing any provisions of the Affordable Care Act. In other words, it basically would be a crime against state law for anybody, any agency or officers of the state of South Carolina to help the federal government implement this thing. And it can't be done without working through state offices. For instance, all the Medicare expansion, that's got to go through the state Medicaid offices. And they're relying on what's called the anti-commandeering doctrine, which is well established in case law, that says the federal government cannot compel the states to enforce federal laws. That's the anti-commandeering law. If there's a federal law, that's fine, but the federal government has to enforce it. They cannot compel states to enforce the federal law. If it's a federal law, then you, the federales, you got to go enforce that. We're not going to do it. And case law says that the federal government can't make them do it, enforce federal law, because it's a federal law. It's not a state law. Why should they be compelled to enforce a federal law? So that's what the basis of this thing is. It would outlaw state exchanges. It would, and by the way, the state exchange in Washington is considered the prime example of one of these state exchanges. They're already dipping into people's bank accounts. This one woman, the one example I read about this morning, she signed up for an insurance policy, signed up to have an automatic withdrawal from her checking account on the 24th of the month. They've already taken out over $800 for her first. She's $800 in the hole because they took money out of her account before she authorized them to do so. So she's going to have overdraft charges and who knows what's going to happen in the second month. So you have the state of Washington without any kind of legal authorization whatsoever dipping into people's checking accounts without them even knowing about it. She didn't find out about it till she gets a statement from the bank, so she's $800 underwater. How did that happen? Well, they took this $865 payment out of her check for the first month's premiums. So anyway, this would outlaw state exchanges. It would issue tax deductions to individuals equal to the tax penalties levied by the federal government, and it would direct the state attorney general to sue over whimsical enforcement of the law. Taken together, Daily Caller says the provisions effectively repeal the federal law for the people of South Carolina. So that's our winnable war moment for the day right there, right there, ladies and gentlemen. Michigan has outlawed abortion as a standard element of coverage in healthcare policies in that state. You want to buy abortion coverage, you got to make a separate decision to do it, separate payment, separate writer. That's a win for the pro-life movement. And then South Carolina, they're ready to void Obamacare for the entire state of South Carolina. And the only opposition, the only argument of the opponents is these people are racists. I have no idea how you get that out of this, but that's their main opposition. These people are racists. And as we've said before, racism is the first refuge of a man without an argument. Soon as somebody starts accusing you of racism, he's admitting that he's lost the argument on merits. He can't debate you. He can't discuss you. He doesn't have the facts. He doesn't have the evidence to back up his position. He's just going to call you names, the first refuge of a man, without an argument. But you start thinking about the number of federal laws that state and local governments have set aside or ignored, and hardly any peep. I mean, they've rejected federal marijuana laws. 19 states have rejected the federal marijuana laws. The Real ID Act, states ignored that. Provisions of the National Defense Authorization Act, federal gun control, they ignored that. And even U.S. immigration law, a lot of states simply ignored that. So that's Winnable War, South Carolina. Not seceding from the Union, seceding from Obamacare. Well, let's go to the phones, grab a call before we're done for the hour. Let's go to Mike in Richmond, Virginia. Mike, welcome. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian.
Hey.
Talk to you, listen to you every day.
Thank you very much, sir.
Enjoy your show. Hey,
Thank you.
about this leader we have, so-called leader, I don't know what you call him, commander-in-chief. I don't know why anybody would have called him that, but I don't know what we need to really do to try to really get rid of him and maybe get rid of a couple of his cronies. Maybe march on Washington. I know they do it all the time. All you need is a permit. The ones that want to go, meet. The ones that love him can stay home. He is nothing but, he's not American. He might have a permit or a certificate that says he's an American, but maybe a communist Muslim, maybe. He's just trying to destroy this country in any way he can, dealing with Iran, giving them money, just doing the things that he does every day. It's not something that happens every once in a while. It's something every day.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate that, and I think a lot of people in this listening audience would agree with you, Mike. I think one of the things we need to do is we need to pray. That's number one, because we're told in the scriptures that God is the one who deposes kings and sets up kings. God has the power to do something. If he sees there's a need to do something early, God's got the capacity to do it. So let's be on our knees. Back after the news.